get out of the car. Like, I mean, that's pretty simple direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those kinds of moments, the thing that makes it seem difficult is that we have to comply. Trusting is key. I think when people say that blindly and they don't have a sense of what they're meant to be doing or that deep connection to source, then it can be difficult to trust. And that's what helps people stay stuck and overwhelmed and running in circles because they are not willing to take that leap. And taking that leap, if it's done well, can mean all the difference in the world.
Hey everyone, it's Tamara Thompson with Broadcast Your Authority, and I'm super grateful for our next guest that flew in from Portland, Oregon. And I'm going to have my co-host Carrie introduce her. Carrie?
Thank you. So Lia Dunlap, the Oracle on Purpose, intuitive business architect, master creator, speaker, international retreat leader, best-selling author, and creator of The Power Plan. I'm so excited. Lia provides clients with total clarity, confidence, and transformation for over 25 years. As the Oracle on Purpose, she helps high-functioning leaders who've burnt out while pushing to constantly up-level their business, only to feel something is still missing, overcome their dysfunctional behaviors, align with their purpose, and create a new chapter so that they can live a life of signature. And I absolutely love this because I'm a psychic as well. And I feel like everybody's psychic story is different. So how did you become the Oracle?
Thanks for asking. I'm so glad to be here. The great story about me being Oracle was actually, I joke that if you've watched The Matrix, I'm still looking for my royalties because I was the Oracle first. Some people look at me and they go, oh my God, you really do look like her. And the truth of the matter is I found out early on that I had a gift. I knew I could see, hear, and understand things about people from a very early age. It took to be about 16 years before I realized as my own somewhat adult person that these were not normal things, that other people were not experiencing that. But of course, like many people, to please my parents, I went off into a much more structured, straightforward, approved path of becoming in sales, marketing, and advertising for major corporations. All the while using my gift to help in rooms, conference rooms, work in broad rooms and telling people what the situation really was, how actually things were going on. So for all of that time, for many years, I used my gift as a tool, but I hid it from everybody that I was working with. Until many years later, when I recognized at a speaking event that my gift was leaking out. I like to say that because it happens a lot with people that are very psychic who don't really acknowledge it. It still comes through. And so one particular time I was at an event, a woman had this really difficult time speaking and she was with the coach. Coach was helping her. And I just blurted out, what's that blue thing on her ankle? And everybody looked at me and I swore I was speaking to myself. And I was like, uh-oh. And then the coach looked at me and said, what are you talking about? It turned out that the woman had been tied to a chair when she was a child because she moved around too much. And the difficulty she was having speaking was she looked really stiff and she couldn't move. They were trying to get her to warm up and be more loose and fluid. And she was standing like a board. And so the fact that I had recognized that one of the challenges she was being into was the ability to move around and be more fluid and in her body came from my intuitive gift. And as we went through the whole weekend, then it was like I was on deck. And anytime somebody was struggling, the coach would turn to me and say, Lia, what do you think? I'm like, well, I'm getting this, I'm getting that. And one other person had been told all his life by his family that he was a know-it-all. So he was having a tough time, speaking about his genius on the stage. And I said, who told you that you're not supposed to know it all? And he stopped and looked at me and said, oh, like my sister and my family. So we worked through that and we helped him. And so at the end of the whole thing, I explained how I'd had this gift for a long time, that I knew these things. And he was the one to blurt out, oh my God, you're the Oracle on Purpose. And I said, actually, yeah, I am. So from that point forward in my life and my business, I started to really embrace this concept that it was helpful, that it could be used for people in not only business, but in life. So I took my task of creating my business in a different structure. So instead of just being, at the time I was a hypnotherapist, instead of being a hypnotherapist, I said, okay, what can I do to really embrace this? I went back to the group that I was teaching at the time and I told them, I've discovered this gift is really important and I've been hiding it from you guys. And as soon as I told this big group of people that I was working with, they went, oh my God, it all makes so much sense now. So for me, it was about understanding that the gift that I had was valuable, and the phrase or the name it was given to me, but it made sense. It made sense because for me, these messages I get, the messages I receive for people, they are guidance. They aren't, I know many psychics like yourself, at that time, I wasn't practicing trying to read people. They were literally like broadcast in my brain that would just come through and say, oh, you need to X or you need to Y, or here's something that's coming up for you. So to me, when I understood what an oracle was and the idea that people would come to oracles, like the Oracle of Delphi, for that guidance and for that understanding on their path, it made a lot of sense to me because I knew for myself that it really was about helping people, myself included, figure out and find what the purpose of their life was and why they were here. So as I started to develop that part of my life and my business, people were more drawn to understand who they were, what they were going to be doing, and why. Because the big question of why is not only profound, but it's common. I mean, everybody's asking,
why are we here?
So often, why are we here? So I think for a while it was daunting to think, oh, well, let's sit together and I'll explain why you're here. But then also it became a really great honor, really, to hold that moniker and say, look, I'm 100% comfortable sitting with you and figuring out what your purpose is. Let's do it together. And that way I can help you to live that life you really wanted to live.
I think that's beautiful. And I love the fact that you were kind of given this name as somebody was like, you're the oracle, and that you started to embody it, because a lot of the times people who will have trouble to embody that psychic, that oracle, that prophet name, especially coming from corporate or coming from an industry that it isn't celebrated. Have you ever experienced any pushback or people who don't necessarily agree or align with the oracle term? And were you able to just really jump in and embody it?
Oh, I think that in the early days, I was probably still holding it back, and I would like vet it with people. You know what I'm saying? Like what I'd say, like, well, are you a spiritual person? And then be like, okay, then we can talk, right? However, interestingly enough, when I left the corporate world, I left a sales job, and it was a few months later, the gentleman who I left the corporate, who was my boss at the time, had reached out to me because he heard through the grapevine that I was doing this, and he wanted to know what his path was in his business. And that was I don't work with a lot of men, but that was one of the first men I'd worked with kind of in that way. So it was really kind of funny to me that like here, people all along, I was in the corporate world for about 18 years. So all of my managers, the CEOs, things like that would take me into their rooms and offices and ask me questions because I just seemed to know what the right answer was. They were the ones I think that understood energetically that they were getting and receiving information that was valuable to them, even though, I didn't frame it that way. So it didn't take long after I had that conversation with him to realize that I didn't have to hide it anymore, period. And that's when actually I changed my business name. Before that, it was a totally different name. And I just embraced it. I said, okay, well, if that's what's going to help people, then that's what I'm going to call it. So my business became Oracle on Purpose. When I introduce myself, people will say, oh, you're the Oracle. I'm like, yeah, I am. It's fine. But I think it mattered to myself at the moment I decided to like put all of what I thought was the business world away.
Yeah.
To say like, I'm really claiming this as who I am and why I'm here to do what I do. And it didn't take probably much more than a year or maybe 6 months that I ended up kind of coming back to balance. So I still use all of my skills, all of my talents in marketing, sales, and operations with my clients because they're women founders and they're entrepreneurs. But we just kind of put it through the lens of, and why? Why are we doing this? Does it matter? Is it aligned with who you are and what you're meant to be doing? So it took a minute, but I think now it's like all one thing. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. So one of the questions that you had asked me is, once you're a psychic or an oracle or prophet or whatever, do you just do sessions for people? I know that's not what you do. So can you explain to us a little bit of how you actually work with people, what you do with them?
Right. So first and foremost, I every session that I work with my clients on, we work one-on-one or in groups. We use a balanced approach. I figure like the whole of your life should be balanced. At the core, I use the idea of what your unique life purpose is, and then we balance everything off of that. And I do now offer once a month. Clients can just come in, and we call it kind of Ask the Oracle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a monthly call. Anybody can come in, join the call, and then they can just ask a direct question. And those questions go everywhere. It's so much fun, though. For me, it's fun. I feel
love
like
those. To be a
I feel
fly
like
on the
that's
wall,
just my
right?
like,
Yeah.
that's just my ability to just kind of like open up and just like, yeah, I'm just going to sit here and channel whatever is coming through for you.
Yeah.
And in the other sessions, I feel like it's more of a balance between the two. Like we have a focus for what we're doing, but I'm constantly receiving messages.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just deliver them as they come now. And the nickname now is O. So my clients know that. They'll say like, they'll literally text me. Some of my clients that work with me one-on-one have access to me nearly 24/7. And they'll say, what does O think about this or that or the other thing? So I will obviously share that information if I have it. And then really, I'm always trying to help them strive to create a better balance in their life and their businesses. So we kind of use that lens to look at it and say, this isn't about perhaps your life, but it is about like who you're going to hire next or things like that, or maybe what product or project you're going to take on next, who you need to talk to. A great story once where a client of ours, we were working on she was creating a software program basically. And she didn't have a tool that she needed to like get the thing off the ground. And so during one of our calls, it was pretty fun because O said, you got to ask Mike. You got to go check in with Mike. And you probably need to have coffee with him. So I said, hey, O's saying you should go call this Mike guy. Do you know a Mike guy? You need to have coffee. And sure enough, she goes to have this. She's like, I do. She sits down with him and he says, oh, I have that tool. You can have it for free. Now she's creating a product that she's going to sell nationwide. And she just walks into this piece of the product that she needed. And things like that happen. So we just really, I use all the tools in my toolbox. Yeah. And I use them as best I can, no matter what people are showing up with.
Lia, I'm curious. This is just such a fascinating conversation. Is part of the work that you're doing with your women getting them to tap into their intuitive gifts? Or is it always this collaborative process with you?
It's a little bit of both. I think at the beginning for a lot of women, if they're not comfortable with that, they'll lean more heavily on what I have to say. Mm-hmm. However, I absolutely believe that everybody has an intuitive gift. And I will engage them with their own guides if I'm getting access with their guides. One client of mine walked in the room and I just was so overwhelmed. I was like, oh my gosh, there's like 32 guides in this room right now. And she was like, really? And I said, yeah. I'm like, do you not know this? And she's like, is one of them a little boy? And I said, yeah, actually he is. And so it helped her because she had never had that conversation with anybody. She'd been walking around like that forever and feeling that energy, like we were talking earlier, like offset, that the energy of those entities in her life were trying to guide her, but she was trying to push them away because she didn't understand it. And yet they were, literally, if you could imagine a cartoon character sitting on and everywhere around her, there were all these guides. And I was like, this is a lot. Like, I understand how you're feeling overwhelmed. I understand how you're feeling like you don't have a direction because you're getting all of this information and you're one side trying to push it away, but it's trying to help you get where you want to go. So you're asking questions, getting answers and pushing them away. So we worked to help her navigate that and bring someone forward that she could communicate with. So yeah, I absolutely believe that's an important piece of the puzzle.
And then going back to this example, because everything that you say, I've got another question.
Right.
So when she walks in the room, you see the guides.
Yes.
Do you see the guides with your eyes?
Oh, that's such a great question.
Or do you feel them energetically? Or is it like a cognitive thought that drops in? I'm just curious as to how it shows up for you.
Yeah, for me, I'm primarily auditory visual. So my visual imagery is, it would be as if there were like watermarks. That's the best way. Hey, that was a great, I've never used that before. It's like a watermark, right? So I can see it in front of people or around people, their guides, or I will get what I call the holodeck in front of me, and things will pop up, little images will pop up. So it's not as visual as like a physical thing, but it is a really clear enough focus that I can tell it's a person's name or a space. The funny story is I'm terrible at geography. So I always tell people, if I give you something geographical, just know it's like over there or over here. It's not like Miami. It could be,
Check out what it is. Do some research.
I always laugh because whenever she gives me anything geographic, I'm like, oh, why do you? Okay, well, I'm going to tell you. It like, to me, it looks like maybe Florida, but I don't know what Florida looks like. It could be something else. So, I mean, I find that it's really important because I think sometimes people, in my opinion, take the process a little too seriously and they become overwhelmed with the idea, like this heaviness. And I like to remind them, like, the guides are there to assist us. There's always a benefit when we receive the right information. There's always a benefit to us. It's to help us grow. It's to help us be more aligned. I like to say there's a 1 in 400 quadrillion chance of us each individually existing. That is not an accident. And therefore, you have a purpose. And whatever that purpose is, the universe wants you to fulfill it. And these guides are meant to help you get there, wherever there is. And right now, that's my focus this year is about living that limitless life where you tap into all of those things so that you can do whatever you need to do to live a limitless life. Of purpose and prosperity. Yeah.
They say experience is the best teacher. And I love that you have not only this corporate experience to help women entrepreneurs transition these really big decisions, both for their family, but also financially. And then you have this amazing ability to help them navigate. I know for me, I've made a couple of really scary, big, hairy decisions that were aligned with my purpose. But it took me a lot longer to make those decisions. And I think I wish I had met you because I would have done it a lot sooner. How do you help empower women specifically to make those big decisions to get them more aligned with their purpose?
Great question. So do you have a process I take all of my clients through? It's kind of the baseline that we do. We deconstruct what their roles are. And most women have multiple roles that they fulfill, whatever that is. So we run through a giant list. And I would say most people, if they don't have 21 or more, especially women that I work with, I know we need to go a little deeper. And then what we do is we tie that to what their core spiritual qualities are, what I like to call their core spiritual qualities. So whatever they really believe about life, I think those are the indicators for them of what their purpose is, right? It's inherent. It's inside of them. To Vanessa's point, it's that part of their intuition where they know they believe a thing because they just know they believe a thing. And so we take those things together and we say, like, what are the things you're doing in your life right now that are aligned with that? What are the things that aren't? I love when I had a client, we had a group that we just did this about once a month. I do this with a whole group. She said, what if I don't have any core spiritual qualities attached to something that I've written on my list? I said, isn't that interesting? First of all, I said, second of all, my next favorite thing is tell everybody, you got to delete, delegate, and automate anything that doesn't actually align with those core spiritual qualities. Because then when you do, you become more attuned to what your purpose is. And by the time we finish that process, it's staring them right in the face. And that's my aha, beautiful moment. That's my favorite thing in the world when I see them light up, because the thing that they've always known about themselves, right? It's not like I'm telling them what it is. They're telling themselves what it is. And then I get to help them craft and strategize and create and architect their life and their business around it.
You're helping them grow what was already there, just maybe buried.
Yeah, oftentimes. And a lot of times it's buried because like myself, and that's probably why I can appreciate it, like myself, they went off on a path because they were supposed to, because it was the right thing to do, or the good girl thing to do, or, the appropriate way to be a woman in business.
Do you find a lot of your women are then like completely changing the business that they're in? Or are they changing the way that they're doing business?
It really depends on the person. I would say more often than not, by the time someone gets to me, if they've been in business for a while, they already have been doing some of the things, because our purpose leaves clues for a reason. Like, again, it wants you to succeed. The universe wants you to succeed. It's not trying to trick you up. If anybody's listening, the universe is not against you. It's always for you. And so even when we're quote unquote off the path, parts of that are going to come through. So more often than not, if a client has made some sort of success in their life, it's because they are being propelled by that purpose. So we're more like clarifying, cleaning up, oftentimes bringing in new aspects. It's kind of like creating more whole, authentic self in their life and their business. So yes, I would say more often not that's the case. However, I have had people completely take a left turn and go. But that's the kind of person who has really been burdened by external sources saying, here's how your life should be. And that's really great, because that's very freeing to watch somebody go like, oh, wait, this artist I know who was a bookkeeper. She came in, she said she was a bookkeeper. She sat down on my couch. I looked at her and Oracle's just going, no, like shouting, no. And I'm like, keep talking. And so she talked a little bit more. And I was like, okay, so you're an artist trapped in a bookkeeper's body. I don't even know how you managed this long. Because literally she showed up, she was wearing like these wild print pants, this crazy hair that was like all cut at angles, these big earrings. I'm like, no, what? So as we talked about it, we did the same process with her. And now she does, it's called Astro Artistry. It's amazing work. And she takes astrology charts and does these phenomenal 3D prints that she creates for people that are just gorgeous. She does them for weddings. She does them for individuals. It's amazing. And that's her business now. And she's great.
And she has the most organized books that any artist has ever had.
That's just what I was going to say. And her books are really good.
But that's it, right? Because she did have a business mind.
Yeah.
So she knew she wanted to do a business, but she didn't see art as a possibility.
Yeah.
For her.
How long did it take her to really step in through that process with you?
So that's a quick, we started that particular process of doing more art. Mm-hmm. Probably, so my original program that I work with on my book, it's called The Power Plan. It's a 90-day program. It really is meant to kind of accelerate people into like the change. So she went from, I'm a bookkeeper to I'm an artist who does books, probably in that 90 days. Mm-hmm. And then we worked together probably for another year. And then by that time, she was doing anybody's books anymore, right? She was doing her own, but she wasn't doing anybody's books anymore. And at that point, she was actually fully running her business. Yeah.
Do you feel like there's certain types of individuals, obviously, when you're helping people go through leveraging this leap that they're going through and this change, you share a lot about, how to make the right move at the right time, to catapult them into momentum. What's the commonality of the clients that you're working with, but what is some of maybe the obstacles you've seen come through in different sides?
Absolutely. I think the big thing about taking a leap, especially for people that are making a big shift in their business, is really understanding their ULP, what I call the ULP, the unique life purpose, because we build from that place, right? So the reason taking a leap can work is that you're taking it on purpose, like literally on purpose, and you're doing it in the direction of your vision. Mm-hmm. Lots of people will just say, I'm a go-getter. I like to take giant leaps of faith. I make big, bold moves. And it's okay. It can be painful when you fall down and fail. And I don't have a problem with failing forward. I feel as if part of the challenge is learning that you don't have to.
Yeah, you don't have to
you don't have to fall on your face. Yes, you don't have to cut the parachute cords on the way down, and that you can actually tactically and practically choose what leaps of faith you're taking. Mm-hmm. And even the great part of that is I find that my clients end up taking more broader, bigger leaps because they have that balance internally, and they know like a yes is a yes and a no is a no.
Do you have a certain success story that someone, like one of the biggest leaps that you've seen someone take, other than jumping out of an airplane,
right?
Which I know some of your clients have done that.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, we like to do fun stuff on our retreats. Yeah, so one client in particular, she's a naturopathic doctor, and she had a clinic. She actually still has a clinic here in California in the US. And she was in one of my programs, also working with me one-on-one at the time. And in one of the group programs one day, she said, "You know what I've always wanted? I've always wanted to live in Scotland." And I said,
Me
"Great,
too.
let's do that." And just got a full yes on that. I'm like, "Great, let's do that." And so that was the biggest leap, because she, of course, had an active practice here in California and US. And she had 2 children and her husband, and he had a job and like all these things. And within 6 months, she was living, actually probably like 4 months before they left, but within 6 months, they were living in the UK. They live in Scotland. She opened her shop. I got to go out there and visit her when she opened her shop in Scotland. She now has clients there as well as the US. She's actually getting ready to do a retreat. She wants to build a retreat center. So like her big leap was the moment she went to go tell her family, "Hey, guess what? We're going to all pick up and move to Scotland," because it wasn't all of their dream. It was her dream. But I think the beauty of that was her vision of where she saw her life and her business going. It made perfect sense. Even though, as she told everybody, it made no sense, because she was doing really well here. Why would you mess this up? Why would you take your family away? What about your children? Her children are doing really well now. They really love it. Her child just got, I'm going to mess this up. She, somewhere in the UK, I think it's St. Andrews. She just got, approved to go to school there. And she's like, none of this would have happened if I hadn't said yes in that moment. Her life and her business catapulted from that point forward.
We were just talking about that, how careful as business owners, especially, we need to be with our vision and who we trust with. I know I personally have been told by my family, "You're crazy. You're going to do what? You're going to leave this job to do, what if you fail? What happens? Are you going to have to sell your house and go bankrupt?" And, I think all those fears creep in when we potentially put too much weight into other people's opinions around our vision. And I think that's what I'm hearing from you, is that you really empower people to lean into that vision without that external validation.
Absolutely. And I think that the idea that we can also look at the big fear, right? If the big fear is so big, let's go beyond it. Like, I literally told her more than one time, "Okay, great. So you lose everything and you're on the street." And she told me that would never happen. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Right? Like, we sometimes we give so much credit and weight to random fearful thoughts. But in her core, I would never let that happen. I'm like, I believe you and you believe you. So
it is interesting though. Obviously, this really resonates with me, because I did it the other way around, right? Leaving Europe to come to the States. And, to your point, Caitlin, I had so much backlash. It was very hard to tell my mum that I was leaving. That was the hardest conversation of all. I mean, really heartbreaking. But I had to be resolute. I just felt such a strong calling to do that, and that it was going to be a really good move for the family, and it was really good move for business. But yeah, the naysayers, right? So often my way of seeing that is the naysayers, when we start to change, it threatens something inside of them, right? They feel uncomfortable because they're, so oftentimes they start to project their fear onto us. And we have to be really careful of who we share those big, bold moves with, and that, are we really aligned with it? Like, once we're aligned, it was so easy for me.
Right.
And that's why everything happened so quickly. My house sold with estate agents that were saying to me, "You'll never get this amount for your house and you'll never be able to sell it on your own." And I was like, well, I'm going to try, And then that whole question around, well, what's the worst that could happen? I knew full well I would never lose everything, but okay, what if I go to the States and we have 5 really great years and then we say we're complete?
Absolutely.
It was a life adventure. So I think that I love that, examining the fear, because the fear, often has a whole load of nothing in it and lies, but there's often some wisdom.
Absolutely. And to your point, I did it. I walked away from my first husband with this clothes on my back, lived on the streets, had 53 cents in my pocket. And if you told that person, that me, that this is where I would be today, she probably would have laughed at you. However, thankfully, because of O, I left because she said, this is not the life you're meant to live. Like, it came into my core.
You are
That's
meant
enough.
for more.
This is not it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I don't know what it is, but this isn't it. So I got to go. And I left. And I climbed out of that. Now, I'm still super grateful. I'm incredibly grateful for the journey I took from that point forward. I think it was meant to happen so that if I do have a client who's there, I'm like, listen, I've been there. Like, it's not where I want you to go. And I certainly don't want to take my clients there, but it is survivable.
Mm-hmm.
If it is meant to be, it is survivable. And I feel like the thriving I did from that point for the next 2 years, I mean, leaps and bounds. Every time I turned around, I had to take another leap. Like, okay, I'm going to go get this apartment. Okay, I don't know how we're going to do this, but I'm going to go do, so it was everything I did became embracing more leaps and bigger leaps as I went along. And so I don't feel like I'm ever now even afraid of those things, because I kind of know better. And what I know better about is that the universe has my back. Because when I left, I thought that was it. But then suddenly this thing happened, and the next thing happened, and the next coincidence happened. And someone else said, hey, do you want to live in my house? I mean, it was like, what is happening? Right. And that was the beginning of the work that I teach in the Power Plan, because I literally just wrote down what I did. I'm like, hey, I think this is working. You guys want to do this together? And so we wrote it down. And then we all ran through the process. And in running through the process, I started seeing that it didn't just work for me. It was working for everybody. And I was like, okay, maybe this was the whole point after all.
Yeah. And no one gets to where they want to go in life alone. We all need help. We all need a helping hand at certain points. And, I love that you've crafted your entire business around that, of really helping people through that journey and through the thick of it.
And I also think one of the biggest misconceptions, and I don't know if you see this in your field because you work with a lot of people on purpose, is that everyone thinks their purpose should be easy. Well, it's my purpose, so it should be easy. I shouldn't face obstacles and struggles and have all these fears. But that's the polar opposite of what it is. When you are on your purpose, you do face struggles and you have to release the limiting beliefs that you have or the programming. And so I love that you're sharing this and that this is how you work with your clients.
Yes. And I think I like to say it's simple, not easy.
Yes.
The real thing, I mean, think about it. Like literally O said, get out of the car. Like, I mean, that's pretty simple direction.
Yeah.
It was very difficult to do it, but it was a really simple direction. And really, I feel like you're right. Those kinds of moments, those kinds of experiences we have, the thing that makes it seem difficult is that we have to comply.
Yeah.
Right? We have to trust. And trusting is usually the hardest part. I think that most of the women that I work with will come back around and visit trust very often.
Yeah.
And usually it comes between, this is what I want, this is where we're going, but now you've asked me to take that extra big step. The extra big step, and I have to remind them, is just the same as the previous 100 you just took. It just looks a little different, right? Yeah. And so trusting is key, but I think when people say that blindly and they don't have a sense of what they're meant to be doing or that deep connection to source, then it can be difficult to trust. And then we fall back on old patterns and old behaviors and old known ways of doing things. And that's what helps people stay stuck and overwhelmed and, running in circles because they're not willing to take that leap. And taking that leap, if it's done well, can mean all the difference in the world.
I love that.
Yeah.
If anyone's, listening to this, Lia, they're excited to take that next journey or learn a little bit more about Oracle on Purpose. And they're like, I want to meet O. You're like, I want to hear from O, and learn more about your power plans and how you can help these women and entrepreneurs. How can they reach you? And what's your, something that you're most passionate about coming up with what you're doing for
the thing that I'm most passionate about right now is really helping people understand how to live a limitless life. So we have an online group that you can join for free and participate. And we talk about not only the factors that it takes, the 4 things that it takes to create a limitless life, but it allows you to be a part of a community where people are encouraging you to take huge leaps, where they're with you on the journey and encouraging you to make bigger choices and bolder choices in your life. That's one way. Of course, you can always come to oracleonpurpose.com. You can read all about the podcasts that I have and tools that I have on the resources I have there. But of course, if you want to talk to O, the best way to talk to O is to come to one of our Oracle Insight and Alignment calls. We happen once a month. Happy to have you be my guest one time for free and check it out. And you can ask O anything you'd like.
I love that. Thank you so much, Lia, for joining us today. I truly appreciate you flying out. So thank you.
Thank you.
And those that are watching this episode, be sure to tune in, leave us a comment. Let us know what you're thinking. Follow Lia Dunlap on all of her platforms as well. And we'll see you in the next episode.